Quick reminder at the beginning of this video here, guys, this is not my main channel. This is my second channel. So please, 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 if you wouldn't mind, subscribe, like, leave a comment, all the usual YouTube stuff, because this one needs to grow so that I can get some more support while I'm covering games other than what I do on the main channel. So really appreciate it. Thank you. Enjoy the video. What's up, guys? Nolan here. Today we got our first full look at the newest US specialization in Broken Arrow, the Stryker Brigade. There was a trailer and a dev diary up on the Steam page, both linked below if you want to check them out for yourself, but I'll have them in the background so that you won't miss anything. Biggest bit of news here is they already said they will be back next month to reveal the 5th and last US specialization, which still looks to be a Special Forces spec based off of the patch at the beginning and just everything that we've seen and heard from the past. No mention of Russia here, but there's lots of BTRs in the trailer as the enemy units, so I'm still thinking the 5th spec for Russia will be that Guards motorized, also based off of that patch that we saw at the beginning of that video as well. That leaves us with 5 specs per faction at release, as they've been mentioning. And at the end of the trailer, it still says June for full release, so they haven't delayed it again yet, at least. For those out of the loop, the 5 specs would be the US gets a Marine, Armored, Airborne, all of which we have seen, Strikers, which we saw today, and again, most likely Special Forces based off of what we've seen and that patch that we just saw at the beginning of this video, while Russia gets Marine, Armored, Airborne, all of which we've seen already, Motostrelki, which we've seen a trailer for, and motorized, which we are assuming, and again, based off that patch that we saw at the beginning. I will be doing a separate video on these specs that we have yet to see another time. So here's what we got with the Stryker Brigade. Mobile, light, and medium armor with deadly weapons and effective infantry, along with solid AA and air support capabilities. On the ground, there is dozens of types of Strikers, all capable of equipping ERA and APS, which is pretty great, but keep in mind, autocannons, bombs, and rockets still will have a good effect on these. They are still relatively lightly armored vehicles. They're pretty well protected, but they're not Bradleys. They're definitely not Abrams, even though they shoot like them and have the APS like them. The Stryker Recon vehicle has exceptional optics and can host up to a 30mm cannon and javelin, along with transporting team-size elements of infantry. The Stryker ICV and Dragoon can hold squad-size elements of infantry. The ICV can have up to javelins, while the Dragoon can get a turreted 30mm cannon. There's anti-tank squads of infantry with AT-4s and javelins, and anti-air squads with stingers, engineers with shotguns, and bunker-busting AT-4s. We also have scout squads, nothing crazy with snipers or anything like that, but assume they'll be able to get the job done relatively well. The Stryker MGS, aka the mobile gun system, is a smaller Abrams cannon on wheels. The ATGM carriers have tows and tow-to-bees. The SHORAD is a welcome addition with its wide array of options from 50 cals and stingers to a 30mm cannon and Hellfires, or a mix of everything. You can also get APKWS rockets on there. I don't know if there's that system. I'm blanking on the word. Those of you weapons geniuses would be able to remember what this is. It's like Dragon or something. I'm not sure what it's called, but I think there's a system where you can make those APKWSs engage air targets. I asked the devs. I haven't gotten a response yet if that is the case here. I think it would be if they added something like that, and I think that's what that system is for, IRL as well. So I'm going to, as of right now, assume that those APKWS rockets will engage air targets. Those won't be planes, though. Those will be low-flying drones, perhaps. But if not, then definitely at least helicopters. There's a 120mm mortar carrier with laser-guided rounds, a self-propelled 105mm howitzer, which apparently is a prototype weapon that has a longer range than the other American howitzers, even though those other American howitzers are up to 150, 155mm. This vehicle doesn't actually exist, so at least the US has something in common with the Russian decks there, although this thing likely won't outshine the T-14s or the T-15s anytime soon. We'll see if they ended up nerfing them into the ground, though, specifically on those T-15s, because everybody loved to bitch about those. The air defense here is spicy as fuck. We got the PAC-3 and the PAC-3 MSE on here. Those are going to be great interceptors and, shorter range AA, sort of like the S-350 over the Russians, but just more. There's also a HIMARS variant, which I didn't even know exists. I think there was like some kind of code name for it. I think it was called an MML or something. Correct me if I'm wrong. Again, not a weapons expert, but this thing can hold up to 15 Stingers, AIM-9s, or Hellfires. This one in particular, if it can fire on the move, will be super spicy, but I don't think it will fire on the move. It had stabilizers out in the trailer in the background there when it was showing off the PAC-3s. The Centurion C-RAM will likely be the best counter-missile defense in the game. I imagine with that phalanx, we'll see how much it costs, because with the anti-overkill toggle now, they'll be getting destroyed left and right because there's just going to be enough planes in the sky against 4 other players that are going to be using seed missiles. I imagine for these things to get killed all the time because it's just going to be too many missiles. The PAC-3 Patriots will help out there, though, similar to the Russian S-350 again, since it can hold up to 12 missiles for intercepting those seed missiles and, of course, whatever else is up there in terms of closer targets, as well as any kind of nukes or anything like that that wants to come in. If you're doing US versus US, those other HIMARS missiles, the PRSMs, the ATACMs, all that stuff. Pretty crazy anti-air setup that you're going to be able to put on if you end up doing this with armored. The M10 Booker, speaking of armored, well, lightly armored, is here as well, which you can equip with APS to help protect it. The 105mm cannon or the 50mm cannon can be equipped here. And that is not a 30mm. Again, that is a 50mm cannon. This absolutely will not be able to take a punch like the T-15s, so don't get your hopes up there. And it also won't have ATGMs, but I think there is a world where the APS eats those attackers, and the 105s or maybe the 50mm do enough to frighten or stun the crew on those T-15s, so maybe the Abrams can do a bit of a better job sweeping them up quicker, or maybe you can even get the 105s on the other strikers. Maybe you can get the 30mm on the other strikers, or maybe you can just get enough Bookers with the 50mm that you could do even like a little mini T-15 rush at them. But something tells me that the Russian armor is still going to come out on top. We also haven't seen the Motostrelki yet, and those are going to have a lot of the BMP-2s, and those are going to have even more availability for the heavier cannons and things like that. So the armored gameplay when it comes to Russia is the peak armored gameplay has yet to be seen. I'm very confident about that. Speaking of being seen, we got the MQ-9 Reaper and the RQ-7 Shadow drones. As usual, don't bother arming these to keep them as cheap as possible, and if you do a good job keeping them up, you will win all of your games because you can't shoot it if you can't see it, and these drones let you see everything. Of course, they'll need to be alive to do that, and the enemy has if the enemy has a proper AA setup, they won't be alive, so something to help mitigate that is the addition of these F-16s in the Stryker Brigade. There will be 3 variants with the C multi-role, the CJ Seed, and the V for Viper multi-role as well. Most notable here, the C can carry up to 6 Mavericks. Those ATGMs are going to be very effective at taking out heavy armor. The Seed is a welcome addition. It looks like you can carry either 4 harms or 2 harms and 2 ECM pods like the Prowler. We'll see what its availability looks like. The Viper can carry laser guided bombs and lays its own targets while equipping ECM jammers as well. It looks like all 3 of these can carry a plethora of AA missiles with a mix between the AMRAAM and the AIM-9Xs. Presumably the AIM-9Xs. I'm not a weapon expert myself, but it looks like there's some kind of rocket that the Viper looks to be holding onto there in the pictures that we saw. Actually, correction, that is not the Viper. After I just looked up to the top left there, that is the CJ, so that is the Seed. I'm curious if those are harms. I don't remember the harms looking like that. I can't really quite identify what it has underneath the wing there. So I don't think those are harms. Maybe there's some kind of new harm or some kind of rocket or something. I'm not quite sure what those are, but they're there. And if you guys know what those are, let me know in the comments. We'll see what its availability looks like. The Viper can carry laser guided bombs and las its own targets while also being able to equip ECM jammers. Then last but not least, the B-52 is in there with all the bombs in the world of all types that we've all seen before. Most notable will be those 20 cruise missiles, which if they release faster than the other options that we have for releasing cruise missiles, it would be more feasible. Otherwise, this thing is S-300 or R-37 food every day of the week, just like the others, while the missiles it shoots will get intercepted by competent players or not hit anything. Will absolutely be fun to play with, but competitive, most likely not. At first glance, I think this will pair great with US Armored because of the Patriot spam to stop air, while the combo of Pivad and Phalanx should stop all but the most taxing seed runs or dumb artillery, unless they added the ability for the Phalanx to intercept artillery, which is something that it can do in real life. It's just not super, I don't think it's super effective, but I've seen lots of videos, so maybe that's a thing they did. The Strykers can rush, while the Abrams from the armored portion can take a punch or hold that ground very effectively. Weakness would be the air, obviously, as neither spec has helicopter strength or supply. I did ask if there is going to be a supply helicopter or helicopters at all for these Strykers, but it doesn't seem like that'll be the case. So all of your supply will be ground transport, which with these large ass maps and persistent enemies who consistently, which are doing the right thing there, looking for your supply dumps, could be a significant issue. On that note, there was a bug the last test where supply depots weren't getting properly camouflaged when they were in the forest, and this was the last test, so next test, they should be harder to find when you put them in the forests, FYI. However, ground-only logistics isn't ideal. Maybe mooch off of a teammate if you end up doing this. If paired up with US Airborne, the drone spam will be legendary while you seed run them into the ground, because they're going to need to have the radar on in order to take those drones down. Just hope that you get some useful teammates to sweep up what your drones spot. The ability to carry supplies with choppers can speed up your rushes with those strikers, while I imagine some of these can be airdropped as well. I think the Booker would be able to at least. You'll need to count on the air tab to carry you a bit, as the Pack 3s will have shorter range than the Pack 2s. We'll see how much exactly. You also won't have any strong vehicles to hold the line, so your strength will be in numbers ideally. But the more cost that you put on the ground is the less that you can put in the air. When paired up with Marines, this might be pretty interesting, and the Steam page actually talks about this as its strongest mix, and I'd have to agree on that one, because you do get at least a few Abrams for strength, and the air tab will be pretty strong while getting helicopter transports. So that might be a best of all worlds kind of situation, master of none. Very interested to see what that ends up looking like. If my expectations are correct about that Special Forces spec, or whatever they end up calling it next month, I'd imagine they would not team up too well together, as it's going to be too infantry and air reliant, but the ability to support the rest of the team would be nuts with those specialized infantry, which is the best thing for infantry, at least during the last test. We'll see if it's going to be the same case here. Those support squads, those SF squads, those recon squads, and air, where we're presumably getting the Raptor. We're presumably getting a bunch of F-35s over there, because guess what? We still haven't gotten any new F-35s. So is there going to be a Raptor and a bunch of F-35s in that other one? We'll see what happens there, but more on that another time. That is everything that we got for the reveal today on the Stryker Brigade, the 4th U.S. specialization for Broken Arrow. Reminder, no word on a new test anytime soon, but they are at least they haven't delayed it again yet. They're still on pace for a June release. More videos to come. I'm pretty hyped up for this game, if you can't tell. So stay tuned for more, and click all the buttons on the screen, or leave a comment to support what I do. Really need it and really appreciate it on this second channel here, guys. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and hope you have a nice day. See you guys.